Hello and welcome back to The Breakdown. I'm your host, Sandra Babu-Boateng. You know, they say history is written by the victors. But what happens when the victors twist the truth? What happens when they erase, distort, and rewrite entire chapters to fit their own agenda? For centuries, Black history, our history, has been manipulated. Some of these lies were meant to justify oppression, and others were designed to keep us from recognizing our power. But today, we're breaking the cycle, and we're setting the record straight. This episode, the biggest lies they told you about Black history. Buckle up. This one's going to be a ride. But before we get into it, do me a favor and subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss another critical conversation like this. Okay, so let's get into lie number 1. Africa was a dark continent with no civilization. Yes, they told us that before Europeans showed up, Africa was just jungles and wild animals. No cities, no innovations, no history, just uncivilized people waiting to be saved. Make that make sense. Well, here's the truth. Africa is home to some of the oldest and most advanced civilizations in human history. Heard of Timbuktu? An ancient city in Mali, Timbuktu was a global center of learning and innovation, with libraries holding thousands of books by Islamic scholars, at a time when much of Europe was deep in the Dark Ages. The Great Zimbabwe Empire built massive stone cities without mortar, something that still amazes architects today. The Kingdom of Kush ruled over Egypt at its peak, and Ethiopia, it has ancient rock-carved churches that still stand as engineering marvels today. So Africa wasn't just civilized, it was a powerhouse. Lie number 2. Africa lacked sophisticated systems of governance before European colonization. You see, they told us that Africa was a land without governance, that chaos reigned until Europeans came and introduced order. But that's just another lie. Long before European colonization, Africa was home to intricate systems of governance, including powerful monarchies that ruled with sophistication and order. These kingdoms and empires had established laws, complex administrative structures, and vibrant political cultures. Take the Kingdom of Benin, for instance. Established around the 11th century in what is now Nigeria, it was renowned for its advanced political structure and artistic achievements. The Oba, or king, wielded significant authority, overseeing a bureaucracy that managed everything from trade to justice. The kingdom's capital, Benin City, was famed for its impressive earthworks and sophisticated urban planning. That's right. Similarly, the Ashanti Empire in present-day Ghana showcased a centralized system of governance, with the Asantehene at its helm. The empire had a well-organized military and a council of elders that advised the king, reflecting a blend of autocracy and democracy. Their legal system was intricate, with codified laws that ensured justice and social order. In East Africa, the Kingdom of Buganda, now part of Uganda, had a highly organized administrative system. The Kabaka, or king, governed through a network of chiefs, each responsible for different regions and aspects of society. This hierarchical yet flexible system allowed for efficient management and adaptability. So these examples are just a glimpse into the diverse and complex political landscapes that existed across Africa. The narrative that Africans lacked governance is not only false, but also dismissive of the continent's rich history of statecraft and leadership. Lie number 3, Africa is poor. You see, they keep pushing this idea that Africa is just poverty and struggle. But let's talk about Mansa Musa, the great ruler of the Mali Empire, who is widely considered the wealthiest person in modern history. On his famous pilgrimage to Mecca, he traveled with over 70,000 men and literal tons of gold, so much that he crushed economies along the way. Imagine being so rich, you accidentally cause inflation everywhere you go. And is Africa still wealthy? Absolutely. This same land, same continent produces over 50% of the world's diamonds, more than 25% of its gold, nearly 75% of its cocoa, 12% of global coffee production, 15% of cotton, 8% of oil, and much, much more. Africa remains a treasure trove of wealth and resources. It's just that most of the profits aren't staying in Africa. Lie number 4, slavery was a favor. Ah, yes. Some people try to tell us that enslaved Africans should be grateful for being brought to the Americas because it introduced them to civilization. You know what that is? Historical gaslighting. Slavery wasn't some benevolent act. It was one of the most brutal, dehumanizing systems ever created. Africans weren't taken from nothing. They were doctors, scholars, warriors, and engineers. Entire societies were devastated so that Europe and America could build their wealth on stolen labor. And let's not forget, the transatlantic slave trade didn't save Africans. It ripped families apart, wiped out cultures, and left generational scars that still affect us today. Lie number 5, Black people didn't fight back. Oh, they love to paint the picture of enslaved Africans as passive victims who just accepted their fate. But let me tell you, resistance was everywhere. From the Maroons in Jamaica and Brazil to the Stoner Rebellion and Nat Turner's uprising, Black people fought back at every opportunity. In Haiti, they didn't just rebel, they overthrew an empire and became the first free Black republic. Enslaved Africans resisted in ways big and small, breaking tools, escaping, preserving their languages and spiritual traditions, and ultimately shaping the cultures of the places they were forced into. So the real story is that Black people were warriors, they were strategists, and they were revolutionaries. Lie number 6, Abraham Lincoln freed the slaves because he cared. Ah, the good old great emancipator myth. Listen, Lincoln did issue the Emancipation Proclamation, but not because he had some deep love for Black people. Lincoln himself said, if I could save the Union without freeing any slave, I would do it. So the Emancipation Proclamation only freed enslaved people in Confederate states, not in the Union. It was a political move to weaken the South and strengthen the North's war efforts. Black people freed themselves, joining the Union Army by the tens of thousands and tipping the war in the North's favor. Sure, Lincoln played his part, but Black liberation has always been in the hands of Black people. Lie number 7, the 40 acres and a mule promise was fulfilled. One of the greatest betrayals in American history was the broken promise of 40 acres and a mule. See, after the Civil War, newly freed Black people were told they would be given land to rebuild their lives. General William T. Sherman's Special Field Order No. 15, issued in 1865, allocated confiscated Confederate land to formerly enslaved families. Now, for a brief moment, thousands of Black families actually did settle on this land. But after Lincoln's assassination, President Andrew Johnson reversed the order, returning the land to former Confederate owners. The dream of land ownership, a crucial step toward economic independence, was stolen before it could take root. Without land or resources, freed Black people were forced into sharecropping, a system that trapped them into a cycle of debt and dependency. Generations later, the racial wealth gap in America is a direct consequence of this broken promise. Lie number 7. The civil rights movement was just about peaceful protest. They love to teach that the civil rights movement was just about Dr. King's speeches and peaceful marches. But that's not the whole truth. Yes, nonviolent resistance was a major strategy, but let's not erase the radicals and revolutionaries. Malcolm X, the Black Panthers, Robert F. Williams, and others advocated for self-defense. Even Dr. King in his final years was pushing for economic justice and preparing a poor people's campaign that made the government nervous. And let's be clear, nonviolent protests weren't met with hugs. They were met with fire hoses, police dogs, and assassinations. The civil rights movement was a battle, not just a march. And the biggest lie they told us? That Black history is a story of suffering and submission, when in reality, it's a story of brilliance, resilience, and resistance. They erased our history because they feared what would happen if we knew the truth. But now we know better. And when you know better, you know your power. So share this, teach this, and most importantly, live it. Now, what other lies have you heard about Black history that you would add to the list? Let me know in the comments, and let's set the record straight. That's it for today. Thanks for staying with me. If you found this episode insightful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so we can keep the conversation going. Until next time, take care.